If there was only one site on Earth that was actual tangible evidence of a mysteriously lost ancient advanced civilization that existed in our prehistoric past,
3 ancient sites built by civilizations that never met, on continents oceans apart but scanning their stones, AI is finding the exact same hidden engineering pattern inside all 3.
Here, they built the most perfect, largest pyramid of all time.
A pattern you can't see with your eyes. A pattern never recorded in any ancient text, a pattern that shouldn't exist, but does.
This is where it all began. It's another innovation of this pyramid.
And this one discovery doesn't just link these monuments.
The stone city of Machu Picchu is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites on the planet.
It challenges what we thought we knew about ancient engineering and human history itself. So let's break down what the AI found, why it changes everything. Exposed by AI. If you gave 3 different engineers the same problem, even if they lived in different countries and different centuries, there's a good chance they would come up with different solutions. But that's not the case with Giza, Machu Picchu, and Baalbek. In fact, it has led us to one of the most surprising discoveries AI has made about ancient construction. A recent AI study compared structural patterns from these 3 structures, and researchers expected to see interesting differences. Instead, the AI did something unexpected. It picked out the same engineering strategy running quietly through all 3 sites, even though their builders never met and their cultures never crossed paths. Or so we thought. Out of thousands of possible design variations, the AI kept pointing back to one shared idea: build with stones that fit, not stones that are glued. Take Giza. The pyramids used casing stones cut so precisely that the joints were almost invisible. But instead of using strong mortar to freeze those stones in place, the builders relied on mass and pressure. That means when the ground moves even a little, the stones don't crack. They shift gently, then settle back into place. Now look at Machu Picchu, the Inca-shaped, many-sided stones that interlocked like natural puzzles.
The stones of Machu Picchu were cut so precisely that they snugly fit together.
Again, no heavy binding material. The walls lean inward slightly so gravity tightens them as they rise. But the stones were never fused into a stiff single block. They were allowed to breathe.
These engineering marvels have preserved Machu Picchu's remarkable condition for over 500 years.
That flexibility is why those walls have survived earthquakes that destroyed modern buildings around them. And then there's Balbeck. This place holds stones so massive they still confuse engineers today, some weighing more than 2 million pounds. Yet even these giants follow the same rule: stability through weight, friction, and controlled movement, not through rigid locking. The foundation doesn't fight motion, it manages it. What's shocking isn't the appearance of the structures. The pyramids look nothing like Inca terraces, and neither look like a Roman temple. What's shocking is that underneath all that visual difference, the engineering logic is identical. This is what modern engineers call convergent problem solving. These people were solving challenges before the laws of physics ever existed. They all had to deal with massive stone, uneven terrain, tall structures, and landscapes that could shake without warning. For centuries, we looked at these sites as isolated miracles, but AI suggests they may be chapters of the same story. An ancient mindset that understood nature better than we assumed. So the question isn't really who copied who. The better question is, was ancient engineering far more connected, more logical, and more advanced than we ever imagined? AI has finally decoded patterns that ancient builders hid in stone, symbols, and silent techniques.
One particularly notable aspect of their construction is foregoing the use of mortar, a material often used to bind stones together.
But before we understand what AI uncovered, we need to look closely at the sites themselves and why they have confused experts for generations. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the oldest structures on Earth, and it's the kind of monument that makes researchers ponder on how people from thousands of years ago managed to build something so extraordinary. Anyone who has ever stood in front of the pyramids knows the feeling. It leaves you completely amazed. And that's because this structure isn't just ancient. It's unbelievably bold. It was built about 4,500 years ago, during Egypt's 4th dynasty, and yet it still rises with a confidence that can challenge modern skyscrapers. But the surprising part that researchers find most shocking is that it wasn't originally designed to be just a tomb. Yes, it eventually served as the burial place of Pharaoh Khufu, but when you see it as a national project, it looks more like Egypt boldly proving that they could create a wonder that would outshine anything the world had ever seen. It was a statement created through careful planning, huge manpower, and a deep understanding of science and mathematics. People often imagine ancient builders simply piling stones until something formed, but that's not what happened here, not even close. The pyramid was built with about 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing around 30,000 pounds on average. That's like trying to move 2.3 million SUVs, only heavier, and doing it all without the help of cranes. Moving giant blocks is one thing, but arranging them with unbelievable accuracy is another challenge entirely. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost a perfect square, leveled so precisely that the margin of error across the whole foundation is incredibly small. Researchers often describe it as architectural laser focus long before lasers ever existed. The sides of the base differ by only about 3 inches from perfect, and the corner-to-corner alignment shows only tiny angular mistakes.
That was one of the keys, the perfectly flat, perfect platform to build the perfect pyramid.
When you understand all this, the pyramid stops feeling like just an ancient monument and starts to look like pure, calculated brilliance carved into stone. Speaking of calculated brilliance, one of the most incredible things about the pyramid is its astronomical alignment. Each side is lined up almost perfectly with the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west, with only tiny deviations from true north.
It is aligned to true north within 1/20th of a degree. That is remarkable when you consider the time period when the Great Pyramid.
To put that into perspective, even some modern buildings can't achieve that level of accuracy without GPS. The ancient Egyptians weren't just building something for the earth, they were building something that spoke directly to the sky. This level of alignment shows that their knowledge of the cosmos was intentional, not accidental. It's almost as if they were turning the heavens into architecture. Now, because a structure this massive doesn't rise without a plan that feels like it was led by the world's first professional project manager, scholars believe the Egyptians used a mix of ramps, sledges, and lubrication techniques to slide huge stones across the ground. They imagine a well-organized construction site, workers pulling sleds in coordinated teams, paths prepared ahead of time, materials scheduled, and physics applied with real understanding. Nothing about it suggests chaos or guesswork. Everything was strategy. Another big mythbuster for researchers came when they discovered that the workers were not even slaves. Archaeological evidence shows that the pyramid was built by a structured labor force: paid workers, skilled craftsmen, and seasonal laborers who worked during the annual floods when farming stopped. Excavations have even revealed a workers' village near Giza, complete with sleeping quarters, bakeries, kitchens, and cemeteries. These workers were well fed, cared for, and even buried with respect close to the pyramids. So instead of a scene of forced labor, it was closer to a national project built on pride, planning, and teamwork. And then there's the engineering signature that makes the Great Pyramid uniquely Giza. While places like the Andes lean on artistic polygon-style stonework, and other sites use giant rectangular blocks, Giza's genius is in its geometric symmetry, standardized blocks, and uniform stacking. The outer casing stones and inner chamber blocks were fitted so precisely that some joints are less than an inch wide. Each block was shaped and placed with a level of consistency that creates a steady, almost modular pattern. It was a construction built on repetition, planning, and strict quality control, engineering standardization at a massive scale. The Great Pyramid proves they weren't primitive at all. They were pioneers. Surveyors before modern tools existed, experts in friction before formulas, astronomers who saw the sky as part of their blueprint.
The authors propose that the pyramids of Giza are designed to match a star alignment in the belt constellation of Orion.
And if this is what Egypt used as its opening statement, wait till you see site number 2. Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu feels less like a ruin and more like a quiet message from a civilization that refused to fade away. Built around 1450 AD at the height of the Inca Empire, this city sits 8,000 feet above sea level in the Andes, almost as if it were carved straight into the sky. Its stonework earned the nickname Puzzle Walls. because the builders shaped rocks into complex polygons and fitted them so tightly together that you can't slide a blade of grass, let alone a knife, between most joints. What shocked experts the most is that there's no mortar holding anything in place. The stones aren't glued with cement or filler. They stay together through precision, technique, and physics. These polygon shapes weren't just artistic choices. Yes, they're beautiful, but they're also far smarter than rectangles in a region known for earthquakes. Cusco, the Inca capital, and much of the Andes lie along active fault lines where earthquakes are constant visitors. When the ground shakes, rectangular blocks crack at their weak corners, but irregular polygonal stones spread stress across multiple angles and interlock tightly, so they release pressure instead of breaking. This means that when earthquakes hit, the walls shift slightly, absorb the force, and settle back into place instead of crashing down. But that's only the visible part of the genius. Beneath the city lies the real engineering secret. Archaeologists estimate that more than 60% of Machu Picchu is actually underground, a hidden skeleton of retaining walls, filler stones, and support layers meant to stabilize the slopes and balance the weight. The pretty temples and homes you see at the top, those are just the surface layer. Under them is a carefully arranged system of crushed rock and boulders acting as shock absorbers and anchors to prevent landslides. If you removed every building but left the underground system untouched, the hill would still remain engineered for survival. That kind of civil planning is something even today's technology struggles to match. Then there are the terraces, the stepped platforms that run down the mountain like green stadium seats. Tourists assume they were only farms or landscaping, but the Inca designed them with a double purpose.
It is an amazingly evocative description of firstly going through what were lovely Inca terraces being upstairs, and then slowly things build.
The terraces worked as farmland and as stabilizing braces, reducing soil movement and strengthening the mountain's foundation. Each terrace has layers beneath the soil. Large stones at the bottom, smaller stones above that, then sand, then topsoil. This layering prevents collapse and improves drainage. So while crops grew above, engineering quietly worked below. And speaking of water, the Inca were obsessed with managing it. Machu Picchu sits in a cloud forest where rainfall is intense and constant. To keep the city from turning into mud, they built a hidden drainage network under plazas and buildings, filled with porous stone that diverted water away from foundations. The city's stone floors and the layout of its streets weren't accidental. They tilt gently to guide water into channels and underground systems. Some of these drains still work today. Some people say Giza and Machu Picchu have nothing in common. And on the surface that's true. Different cultures, different beliefs, different continents, and different challenges. One is a symmetrical pyramid stacked like layers of cosmic cake. The other is an irregular stone labyrinth woven into a mountain. But remember, AI was built by humans, yet it doesn't think like humans, and what it has uncovered has reshaped how these sites are understood. Machu Picchu isn't just timeless because it's spiritual or mysterious, it's timeless because the Inca engineered it to be. They didn't build on the mountain, they built with it. Now we've explored two wonders, two worlds apart. But the third one, that's where everything comes together. Balbeck. Balbeck is one of those places that stays wrapped in mystery no matter how much you study it. Sitting in Lebanon's green Bekaa Valley, the ruins of the Temple of Jupiter, also known as Baalbek, rest on what many call the impossible platform. What makes this site astonishing isn't just its beauty, but the unbelievable size of the stones used in its construction, a scale that genuinely challenges what we think humans can achieve. 3 enormous foundation stones, known as the trilithon, form part of the temple's base. Each one is estimated to weigh nearly 2 million pounds and measures about 69 feet long, 15 feet high, and over 14 feet thick.
This is the real mystery of Baalbek. How these stones came to be there, why they were placed there, and specifically how they were transported into place.
These stones remain some of the heaviest ever used in the ancient world. But that's only the first shock. A short distance away in a nearby quarry lie even larger stones that were cut but never transported. One is the famous Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing over 2 million pounds. Another, discovered more recently, is even heavier, possibly the largest monolith humans ever attempted to move. Researchers note that the builders of Baalbek didn't choose small blocks or artistic shapes. They went for gigantic rectangular monoliths, carved precisely and laid in straight, ordered layers. It's a style of construction unmatched in scale or boldness. These are not random forms. They are massive, uniform rectangles, placed together to create a stable, towering platform. What is even more mysterious is that no ancient manual survived to explain how any of this was done. There are no blueprints, no diagrams, no engineering notes, just the stones, the quarry, and evidence of determination or genius.
Baalbek, as we know from the archaeological evidence, must have existed during the Neolithic period, between 6,000 to 8,000 years or even 9,000 years BC.
The result is a monumental foundation built with megaliths instead of smaller stones or bricks. The size itself becomes symbolic, a message of power, permanence, and sacred intention carved into the landscape. In fact, the ambition seems to stretch beyond what was physically achievable. Several quarry stones, like the 2 million pound stone of the pregnant woman, the 2.6 million pound stone of the south, and another weighing nearly 3.6 million were shaped and prepared but never moved. Their existence hints at a project designed at the very edge of possibility and maybe even beyond it. The stones were ready, but the full vision may never have been finished. The purpose wasn't only structural. Using such massive stones for a temple base was also symbolic. And when you compare Balbeck to other ancient wonders built with polygons, standardized blocks, or geometric stacking, the difference is clear. Balbeck's entire philosophy is about size. Monolithic, rectangular, uniform, colossal. The fact that the techniques are still unknown only increases curiosity. Scholars propose roads, rollers, sledges, and manpower, but no direct records survive. Without documentation, all explanations remain possibilities, not facts. What we have left is the platform, the stones, and the abandoned giants in the quarry, the unfinished monoliths, the massive foundation, and the unanswered how, all point to a civilization that aimed higher and heavier than anyone before them. They engineered right up to the edge of what was possible, and maybe even crossed it. What we find in all sites. It's fascinating that these three places, Giza in Egypt, Machu Picchu in Peru, and Baalbek in Lebanon, have survived for so long not just because they're old, but because they were engineered with stubbornly smart ideas. And this is where modern AI pattern analysis gets interesting, because it spots connections most of us would never notice by simply looking at pictures or walking through the ruins. One of the strongest similarities AI keeps pointing out is that all three sites were built to survive the ground itself, especially when the ground decides to shake. Let's start with the obvious. None of these places sit in calm areas. Machu Picchu is perched high in the Andes, a region with intense and frequent earthquakes caused by restless tectonic plates. Peru is literally one of the most earthquake-prone countries on Earth. Baalbek lies in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, a zone full of geological tension because it sits near the Dead Sea Transform Fault, one of the most active fault systems in the Middle East. And then we have Egypt. People don't often link the pyramids to earthquakes the way they do with Peru or Lebanon, but northern and eastern Egypt also experience moderate seismic movement thanks to the African and Arabian plates meeting nearby. So in all three cases, the builders were dealing with land that shifts and shakes whenever it wants. Instead of resisting the movement, they designed their structures to work with it. AI simulations and structural models show that all three sites share a core engineering mindset: flexibility instead of fragility. They used huge stone blocks fitted so precisely that the stones shared stress rather than cracking under it. The joints are tight, but not stiff like concrete. There's no brittle mortar freezing the blocks into one rigid shape, so when the earth moves slightly, the stones don't crack, they adjust. In Machu Picchu, the joints are so perfect that you can't slide a credit card between the blocks, yet they still settle microscopically when the ground shifts.
The technique of fitting these blocks together baffles archaeologists and engineers today.
This is one big reason the city has survived multiple earthquakes while newer buildings nearby have collapsed. Balbeck uses the same logic, but on a much larger scale, especially at the Temple of Jupiter platform, where the Romans placed enormous stones at the base. The trilithon blocks and the layers beneath them allow pressure to spread through the structure rather than explode in one weak spot. And at Giza, the pyramids sit on a limestone plateau, but the foundation stones and original casing blocks were set with such precision that vibrations travel across the whole pyramid instead of concentrating at the corners. Another shared survival trick is buffering through form. AI structural mapping shows that all three sites use terraces or podiums like natural shock absorbers. Machu Picchu is essentially a mountain made of terraces, but they weren't just for farming or aesthetics. They break up seismic waves, absorbing stress layer by layer instead of letting one big jolt hit the whole structure at once. Balbeck has its own version with its raised podium platform. It's a huge base that spreads weight and reduces the impact of seismic pressure. Even Giza, which doesn't have mountain terraces, uses a raised and leveled platform approach, locking the pyramid into the plateau and ensuring the foundation takes priority. And then there's water. It may sound unrelated until you remember that water with poor control can destroy stone faster than earthquakes ever could. AI analysis shows that all three sites were designed with intense attention to drainage and foundations. Machu Picchu has a hidden grid of stone channels beneath the terraces to move rainwater away so the soil doesn't soften and cause landslides.
It's estimated that potentially up to 60% of the construction of Machu Picchu is underground, and these deep foundations were necessary to help with seismic movements.
In the Andes, heavy rain plus loose earth is a recipe for disaster, so they built a drainage system before they even built most of the visible city. Baalbek's temples sit on engineered sub-foundations and lifted platforms that keep groundwater from weakening the stone and guide rainwater away to prevent uneven erosion. And Giza's builders chose high ground on purpose. The plateau reduces water buildup, and the base stones were laid to limit moisture seeping into the foundation. AI didn't create these similarities, but it finally recognized the message the builders left behind in stone. Don't fight nature. Partner with it, build around it, and respect its rules. That's the quiet engineering genius all three sites share. If this discovery blew your mind even a little, make sure you hit that like button. It helps this video reach more curious people. And if you want to dive deeper into ancient engineering, hidden patterns, and what AI is uncovering next, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode.